This is JJ Pianki of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign interviewing Eric Ashworth on October 31st, 2017 at the University Library. Where and when were you born?
I was born in Gouverneur, New York, June 13th, 1960.
Who are or were your parents, and what are or were their occupations?
My dad, Freeman Ashworth, his occupation was computer programmer for the University of New York. I'm trying to think. SUNY is basically what it is, like State University of New York. I think that's what it stands for, at Cobleskill, New York. And my mom was a housewife. Carol Ashworth was her name.
What were you doing before you entered the service?
I was a high school student.
And what branch of the military did you serve in?
I served in the United States Army.
Okay. So, since you enlisted, why did you choose that branch?
Okay, well, first off, I didn't enlist. I was commissioned. Okay, enlisted is for basically soldiers that come in as non-commissioned officers. Mm-hmm. So I entered the military through an ROTC department, just like they have it here on this campus. Mm-hmm. And once I got my 4-year degree and I got my commission literally on the same day, then I started serving. Okay. And so what was your follow-on question to that?
So why did you choose that particular branch of the service? Why Army?
I think I chose the Army because of the fact that they offered me a scholarship to go to college. My parents weren't wealthy enough to send me, and I wanted to go. So the military said if I was willing to give a little bit of time, they would cover my college bills.
Okay. So sort of like a reverse GI Bill.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, at first I was kind of like, okay, what's the catch? But no, it worked out great.
Okay. So what happened, so going into sort of your past ROTC and now you're, you graduated, blah, blah, blah. What happened when you departed for training camp and during your early days of training?
Well, of course, it's like any other job. You have to kind of figure out the basics. You're truly the low man on the totem pole. You're trying to figure out what, in my case, what I needed, what skills I needed to get smart on so that I could lead soldiers should we have to go to combat. There's a lot of training, a lot of education. Believe it or not, the military, even though you had a 4-year college degree, sends you to a school that actually gets you a better understanding of a particular branch. In my case, it was field artillery. So I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma for 6 lovely months and learned everything that was as far as shooting artillery pieces.
Okay, so once you graduated from ROTC, did you have to do boot camp at all? Or was boot like part of the ROTC experience?
Exactly, yeah. Okay. What ends up happening is you go for your 4 years, you take classes in ROTC very much like you would take chemistry class or something. Mm-hmm. But one of the summers, you have to go to what's called the advanced camp, and that is essentially officers' version of boot camp.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
And so then your specialized instruction was after artillery school.
Exactly. Once I was officially commissioned.
Gotcha. Do you recall your instructors, and if so, what were they like?
Yes, I do. I remember a Major Vic. He was one of my instructors. They encouraged us, because again, a lot of us weren't sure what we were doing. In my case, the Army had kind of had a bad reputation after Vietnam, so it was kind of like they were convincing us that the Army's changing for the better, and we need young people like yourself to improve it. And frankly, I think we have. But I mean, the point is, that's really what I remember the most of all the instructors there.
Mm-hmm. How did you adapt to military life, including physical regimen, barracks, food, and social life?
Well, that was an adjustment. I mean, again, I hadn't done anything like that until, like I said, I joined ROTC. But I found I enjoyed the camaraderie of the other, in my case, officers, but also as I got into units, I started, being involved with the soldiers as well. And yeah, they were all there for a greater cause than just to make money or whatever. And I kind of like that. So, yeah.
So where were you stationed?
Ooh. How long of a list do you want?
Hit the highlights.
Okay, the highlights?
Yeah, hit the highlights.
Okay. Well, believe it or not, in the 1980s, this most significant time was in Germany. So that was when before the wall came down. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I always tell the cadets here at the university is I was actually on the border between West Germany and East Germany the day the wall came down. That was kind of cool to see all of the East Germans flock over to West Germany and getting their first taste of freedom. That was kind of an exciting time and stuff like that. So that was probably in the 80s. 90s, probably the biggest thing I did in the 90s was primarily at Fort Sill. I came back to there. That's where I did a lot of my middle management type of jobs in the military. And then after, the 2000s, of course, I was involved with Iraq. I supported Operation Iraqi Freedom and, got to learn what it takes to basically convert a military operation back to the civilian side, because what my job was trying to help the government of Iraq try to get an understanding of democracy, because it was after Saddam Hussein, and that was kind of interesting. You get appreciation of what we have here in the United States, seeing what they had to go through.
Mm-hmm. And when did you retire out?
I retired in 2012, exactly 30 years.
Good job.
So, yeah.
Okay, so let's kind of unpack them a little bit. So, sure. 1980s Germany, what were you doing in Germany? I mean, you were obviously you saw the wall fell, you were on the wall when it fell. But what was your job? How was Germany?
Okay, well, let me make sure so I don't get any confusion here, okay? When we think about we were there at the wall, a lot of people think about the Berlin Wall, okay? Mm-hmm. I was actually at a training exercise in Grafenwehr. That's where artillery units would go to shoot artillery, And we were told, I was given a call by my battalion commander. I was a lowly captain at the time, and he basically said, we had a job for you to do, and believe it or not, it was the easiest job I've probably ever done in the Army, but it was probably one of the most fun too. But anyways, I was supposed to take a group of soldiers, and we manned the exit sites off of the Autobahn. The Germans have Autobahns. And when they opened up the borders, then like all these East German families were all stuffed in these little cars called Trabants. They're actually wooden vehicles. It's really interesting, because it was kind of for a month afterwards, all these Trabants are all over West Germany, and you could actually go and feel the wood. It was kind of interesting. But anyways, so they came across the border, and like I said, we literally stood there in our uniforms, helmet on, holding a rifle, the whole things. But yet, it was like more like we were like waving to them, type of thing. So it was kind of like I said, for me, it was a lot of fun. But I think looking back at it, they understood that they were oppressed by the Russians and the East German military. Mm-hmm. I think they wanted to make sure to keep them on the Autobahn and not just kind of go wherever they felt like it. Mm-hmm. They had us, on the exits to kind of keep them on the Autobahn, because what they wanted them all to do is go to Munich and Nuremberg. Those were the two sites that they would literally give them some Deutschmarks and then allow them to kind of experiment, with Western culture a little bit. And what was surprising is they all got back in their cars at the end of the day and just drove back home. And then the next day they would come back if that's what they wanted to do. Some of them, I'm guessing, again, this is just speculation now, I'm guessing maybe they just checked it out one day and never came back. But who knows? They might have come 100 times. It was just kind of an interesting period in history. And like I said, I felt pretty excited about doing that. Now, getting back to what you were saying, what I was doing in Germany is when I did primarily my lower captain level jobs. I was a battalion S4, which is the officer in charge of logistics for the unit. So, we made sure that all the supplies got to the right places and things like that. And then I was a battery commander. That is a kind of in charge of about 100 men. In my case, I had the service battery, so I had all of these big trucks that hauled the ammunition to the guns and things like that. We had the dining facility, so I had all the cooks, those types of things, the fuelers that filled up all the things. So again, it was an interesting job, and that's what I did in Germany.
All right, cool.
Sure.
So in the 90s, you were back in Fort Sill. Fort Sill was located in
Oklahoma.
And what did the Army have you doing in Fort Sill?
Yeah. Okay. Well, there was three jobs I actually did there. So again, that's why I said my majority of the time was here. Now you got to realize that the Army in the early 90s was downsizing, meaning it was getting rid of some of the soldiers and officers because we had won against the Soviet Union, and of course, like we do throughout our history, is we reduce the military as soon as the enemy goes away. So that was kind of a tough decision for me because I was like, well, should I get out or shouldn't I, and stuff like that. But someone convinced me, no, you're going places, you should stay in. So I did. And so the three jobs I primarily did in the 90s, I was a battalion S3, which is the operations officer. So again, the same unit, same type as I was the battalion S4, but I was controlling all the training, and when we had to deploy, I was coordinating the plans, kind of like what you would think of maybe like an event planner, but just kind of that's what I did. And I did that for about 2 years. Loved it. I was on a new weapon system. Prior to that, I was dealing just with artillery cannons, so they shoot a shell. This period in my career, I was actually with the multiple launch rocket system, so you actually shooting rockets. I think that's so much cooler. But anyways, that's just, it's just kind of a different, system, a different type of mission and things like that. So, had to learn that. But again, I enjoyed the people I was working with, and I felt we did very well. We got to train a lot with Marines because they don't have that weapon system, and did a lot of training events in the United States. This was a period when there was a lot of police actions going on, but no real major wars or anything like that. My next job was Brigade XO. That stands for a Brigade Executive Officer. That's basically the deputy for the commander. So whenever the commander is off doing something, then the executive officer does that. So I had that job also at Fort Sill. And really I found that interesting because basically the executive officer controls the staff, making sure they're doing what they're supposed to. Didn't think I would ever get that high. It was actually a kind of a shocker. Are you sure you want me? Type of thing. But they did, and I think I did okay. And then my last job, it was right at as we switched over into the 2000s. I got the chance to be the battalion commander for one of those multiple launch rocket systems. That was interesting because that's when obviously 9/11 occurred. In which case there was. I remember the day when that occurred. I was at Fort Sill. They locked down the post. So, just imagine just like if you were like a parent taking your child to school off of post. Some of those ladies took them like 5-6 hours to get back on post because of the fact that they locked them up and they didn't know what was going to happen and all of that type of stuff. So that was an interesting time. We thought we were going to go to war immediately. Of course, that didn't happen right away. But you don't know what's going to happen. And so then again, of course, training has a new meaning because we're thinking like, hey, next week we could get the call and things like that. So it was an interesting time period. And like I said, I got to see a lot of interesting things.
And then you, in the 2000s, then you ended up going to Iraq. Mm-hmm. So while you were doing battalion stuff at Fort Sill, were there times when your brigade was, or battalion was deployed, where you went somewhere.
Well, we went someplace for training. There was a lot of, in the 1990s, there was a lot of training going on. Like I said, I went to National Training Center 6 times. You know, I mean, and each one of those is like a month-long deployment. So you literally have to take all your equipment and all your personnel, go all the way to Death Valley, California, spend a lovely month in the desert, and then you'd come back and, train up again. So, I mean, there was the indication that something big might be happening, but no, never deployed outside the United States during that time period.
Until the 2000s.
Till the 2000s, yeah. Now, what was interesting is by that time, I was completely out of what we would call the artillery units, because about battalion commander is about the highest you can have, and then once you get into that, now you're part of a division staff, or basically you're working for a general officer who's directing a whole bunch of units. But yeah, from the 2000s until I retired in 2012, I was either a strategic planner, or I got the opportunity to teach at U.S. Army War College, which was kind of interesting. That was
interesting.
Yeah. So again, that kind of led me to this job here. I enjoyed teaching, and so when this came open, once I officially retired, then I was like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go to Illinois.
Okay, so in the 2000s, so what, 2002, 2003? You went to Iraq?
No, I didn't go to Iraq until actually 2009.
Oh.
But 2003 and 2004, I was at the Pentagon. Okay. So again, I was involved with a lot of at that time, we had the issue where we won real quickly, but then we had all of these asymmetric threats out there. Soldiers were getting blown up by IEDs, improved explosive devices. And so we had to up armor the Humvees, put more armor on them than what they came out of the factory with. And so those were types of missions that we had to kind of figure out, okay, well, there's not any company out there that's able to do the number of vehicles we do, so how do we go about doing that? So we kind of developed plans for things like that.
So was this your strategic planning time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I worked actually out of the Chief of Staff of the Army's office. That's the 4-star general that kind of works. He's in charge of the Army, and so therefore he has a subordinate under him called the Director of the Army Staff. It's typically a 3-star general, and then the Director of the Army Staff has these kind of what we call initiative groups. And I was part of one of the initiative groups because I had just graduated myself from the Army War College, and that kind of gave me the check mark that I could be a strategic planner. And then from there, so they said, you got orders to go to the Pentagon. Congratulations.
Okay, so by the time you got to the Pentagon, what rank were you?
I was a colonel.
You were a colonel by then.
Yeah, full bird colonel. Yep. So again, it was, I was. My happiest day in the Army was when I got promoted to captain, because after that I never dreamed I'd ever get promoted again. I just never did. I just figured I was doing my job. I wasn't saving people on the battlefield or anything special. So it was wow. So yeah, it was kind of I'll just kind of continue to do this till they tell me to go home type of thing.
Gotcha. So you did a strategic planning up until 2009, and then you had a new job, which was go to Iraq and work on transition things. Yeah,
that's when I got involved, where I was on this group. It was called the Partnership Strategy Group Iraq. PSGI is what they call it. And basically our job was kind of interesting because the military organization has this thing called future operations. Okay, so all the general staffs have current operations and then future operations. So typically the work that I would do would fall under future operations, but it was such a huge event, and we had, by that time, 2009, we'd already basically told the military that we're coming home. We're not going to stay there after our basically status of forces agreement ended in 2011. So the future the future plans was basically all based on how do we get 6 years of military personnel and equipment home, because I mean that was a lot of stuff. So they focused their total efforts on that. So there was no one really focused on how does an area that's now controlled by the Department of Defense shift over when we leave. So some of it went to the State Department because we still had a State Department there. The rest of it had to be given back to the government of Iraq. So it's just kind of interesting. Even little things like, okay, how did the Iraqi soldiers get paid? We were paying them, and so now we had to somehow make sure that we trained up an organization in the Iraqi government that wouldn't swindle all the money, because that was their
Right.
kind of way of doing things. So we were like, no, that's a bad thing. You want to pay your soldiers, so then they don't, they don't revolt on you, type of thing. So we're teaching them a lot of those types of things, and of course, I mean that's kind of humorous, but I mean that's just generally the way we kind of looked at it. Is like, some of these things we wouldn't even consider in the United States, but this was something that they had to kind of work on, and it was kind of exciting because, like I said, I'd never done anything like that before. I got to work a lot with the embassy in Baghdad, so that was kind of interesting and stuff because they have a different mentality than the military, so it was kind of interesting, kind of being on the fence and kind of having to explain to both sides, the other view. And so like I said, I really learned a lot, and I really felt like I was actually using, because by that time I'd had about 27 years in. So it was like, I really feel like a lot of the knowledge I was lucky enough to get throughout my career I was actually using. So, yeah.
Awesome. You said earlier that you taught at the War, so you graduated from the War College, and then you got a chance to teach at the War College.
Yeah.
So when did War College happen for teaching?
Yeah, that was kind of a funny thing too, because again I was working in this initiatives group for the director of the Army staff. Well, twice a year the military requires you to get evaluated by your senior, what we call senior rater, but it's the leader that's kind of supervising you. Okay, so he brought me into his office. He's kind of saying, hey, you're doing great here. These are things I'd like you to work on and stuff like that. And one of the questions he comes back to me was like, what would you like to do after this job? And I said, well, sir, I think I kind of would like to go back to the War College and teach. And he's going, oh, I could see you doing that, and stuff. And he just kind of left it at that. I didn't think anything of it until like 6 months later. I got orders to go teach at the War College. And I told my wife, I said, boy, good thing I didn't tell him I wanted to be a janitor or something. He would have like, not that anything against janitors, but I was like, that was the first time I'd actually, mentioned to someone what I really would like to do, and I actually got to do it. Other than that, it was like, well, we'll see, and sometimes it never happened. So anyway, so that's but that was another interesting thing, and sorry to go off on a tangent, but so many of my jobs in the military I didn't want to do, but I found when I gave them up, I was like, oh, that was the best job I ever had. So it was weird. It was either someone was really taking care of me, or else I was just meant to be a soldier, and pretty much put me in any job. I would have loved it, But point is, I really felt like I had the opportunity to do a lot of interesting things, So anyways, so that's how I got to the War College.
And when were you at the War College?
Well, my first tour was from 2006 till 2009, and then, like I said, that 1 year all expense paid vacation to Iraq, and then I came back from 2010 till I retired in 2012.
What were you teaching while you were at the War College?
I was teaching strategic leadership. I was out of the Center for Strategic Leadership. It's actually one of the departments there at the War College, and I get to do a lot of interesting stuff. We would do simulations. We would actually go to a lot of the universities and kind of teach civilian grad students that were doing international relations and foreign affairs and all that, those types of things. So that was kind of an interesting thing. And then you may not realize this, but the War College every year has somewhere in the neighborhood of 70 to 80 foreign officers. And they come here, they're part of the State Department. It's not part of the Department of Defense, but the State Department invites these officers to learn from our schools, our military schools. And so a lot of the things that we were doing was kind of helping their education. So they understood how the U.S. military operated and then how we could operate as an ally type of thing. And that was, when it was all said and done, that was really what that program was all about. But again, it was interesting. And then seeing the Arab Spring that occurred a few years ago, I can't remember the exact dates, but that was a War College graduate who was in Egypt at the time and basically, worked with us to kind of keep everything from turning into chaos and stuff like that. So I'm like, yes, actually what we're teaching is actually working. So those are the types of things where you really kind of feel good about it afterwards, because you say that you actually did something that meant something to at least someone in the world. So
yeah, and change outcomes
of
what could have been a disaster or whatever. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. So was there any time where you were actually in combat?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you'd say my time in Iraq was in combat. We were mortared quite a bit, but that's because we were close to the embassy. They were aiming at the embassy and we weren't that good a shot, so sometimes they would come on our insult. But I wouldn't really say that I was. I mean, I had to wear around a flak vest and helmet anytime I was outside, and when the sirens went off, we'd have to obviously go in bunkers and things like that. But no, not where bullets are actually flying at me and stuff. While I was in Germany, you got to realize that the Cold War was going on. So, I mean, we were prepared. We did all the drills for it, but, we know that never turned out to be a war. So, again, I'm hoping that part of the reason for being well-trained and things like that is to keep others from deciding that they want to attack the United States. So
deterrence.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So in all your time abroad, I mean, what would you say are some of your fond memories of being abroad? Whether it was on duty or off.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things. I also served in Korea for a year. I found that the Koreans were very interesting people. Really admired their culture, and like I said, being in the military was a great way to kind of see the world from a different perspective than if you just went on a tour. We've been on several tours, and you're always wanting to kind of know if real life in that country is like what I saw for this week or so, and like I said, when you're there for a full year and interacting on a daily basis with them, I think you get a better understanding about how the other parts of the world operate. And so I got some time in Europe, some time in Asia, in Korea, and then of course the Middle East. So what was kind of nice about that is I got to see basically 3 different parts of the world. So still would like to see what Africa would be like, but I didn't get the chance to do that yet.
Okay. What kinds of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving, and with whom?
Well, that's an interesting thing too, because most military people, I don't know if you really have lifelong friends, and the fact that everything you do, you always go to a friend's house for Thanksgiving dinner or something like that. And I think a lot of that is because most military assignments are only 2 to 3 years, so you generally make friends very quickly because you're not going to be with that person very long. But then when they leave, I miss you. Maybe you might send letters or emails and stuff like that. But after a while, that generally tends to fade. But what I found was amazing is if you ended up with another assignment, maybe 10 years later with the same person, it's just it was like yesterday. I mean, and it's all that, kids have grown up and things like that. But I mean, it's like you never left. So it's really, really kind of an interesting dynamic. So I guess to answer your question, I always found that most of my colleagues were very friendly, and I enjoyed doing things with them. Everything from just going over to their house to watch a football game to if, they were in a crisis and we had to watch their kids for the weekend or something like that. Whatever the situation is, it was I always found it was enjoyable, and it was part of the reason why I liked staying in the military. It wasn't just the military mission, it was the people that I worked with.
Gotcha. So, how did you stay in touch with family and friends back home, especially since you sort of came on board in the military sort of pre-internet?
Yeah.
And then, internet, pre-internet through, internet and Facebook and cell phones.
I can answer that question for you. Because in Germany in the 80s, I would, when, like I said, my parents and stuff, I would write letters. Literally, you'd write a letter and you'd get it back. And I remember my wife, her dad would every now and then send us it's a video on the tapes. What are those called? VHS video. We'd pop it into the TV and see what was the latest and greatest going on in the United States. I remember that. Then in Korea, which was, like I said, the end of it was over 1999 to 2000 that year. Email was available. So, you would send emails back and forth, and it was kind of cool that you actually got a response like, the same day, or lots of times when it was day there, it was night in the United States, so maybe you'd get it the next day, but it was still like, wow, this is amazing, And so that was kind of how we stayed in touch. And then, of course, in Iraq in 2009, I actually Skyped with my wife probably 4 or 5 times a week. It was kind of like an interesting thing, had the kids come on, hey, how's it going, type of thing. So it was just amazing how, like you said, the technology had improved over those 30 years. And like I said, I think the American people, or at least the government, really tries hard to try to help the soldier communicate with family back at home, Yeah. Gotcha. Now we got USOs and all those types of organizations that's one of the first things they do when they go to a place like Iraq. They'll set up this big bank of computers that have Skype on them, and soldiers literally come in and they get a little 15-minute time period that they can talk and that type of stuff. So that stuff happens, and it's all thanks to whoever donates to the USO and all that type of stuff. So it's like great.
Awesome. What did you do for recreation when you were off duty? And that's a long time to be off duty.
Yeah. Well, I know when we were in Germany, my wife's an avid traveler, so we would travel. I would literally get home exhausted on Friday, and she'd say, "Come on, we're going to Rome." And I'm like, "What?" And she'd say, "Yeah, I got the bags already packed, and the bus is taking off in a half an hour." So I'd literally change, and we'd spend it. So that was kind of cool. But of course, in Germany, you're a bus ride away from a lot of interesting things. In Korea, it was a little different because I was there by myself. So I would do things with the other officers that were there. I was involved in a church group in Korea. We were actually teaching a bunch of Korean high schoolers and college-age kids English through the Bible, which I thought was really, really interesting. So that was kind of an operation that we did there, and it was kind of an interesting way of learning, about the population and some of their concerns. Because of course afterwards they would just talk, what's it like to be an American? And I don't know, what's it like to be a Korean? So we would kind of work those types of things. Now in Iraq, that was truly combat oriented. So there wasn't much opportunities to just sit down and chat with people. I would have liked to have gone and maybe seen how an Iraqi family lives or something like that, but there just wasn't those opportunities. We were kind of in our area and they were kind of in their areas and stuff like that. So their recreation was pretty much do physical fitness. A guy would say, "Hey, I got a DVD from home. Anyone want to borrow it?" So, "Yeah, I'll borrow it," type of thing. So you did stuff like that. We'd Skype, read books. those types of things. But yeah, it was because it was more of a combat environment. It was a lot more restrictive of what you could do, and of course, everything was always like, got to make sure that we're not doing anything that could potentially be providing information to the terrorists and things like that. So it was definitely different. But believe it or not, there was enough work that it seemed like that year went by real fast.
So when you were in the service, did you read for pleasure, and if so, what?
I'm a big fan of military history, so everything I've probably read since I was 15 has something to do with military history. I know that's probably weird, but I don't know. That's just something that I enjoyed, and I didn't mind doing that. So I guess I would say that it's for pleasure. I really enjoy reading it for just because I like to know these things. But I generally do find I can use them to help when I teach, and so I guess it's a little business too.
Is there any particular time period you like the best?
No, just as long as it has. I find I like military history more than just regular history. I've tried, but it's just, some of the other stuff is just like, okay.
Gotcha. What particular book would you say influenced your life the most?
The book that influenced my life the most. Wow. Can I pass on that one? Just because, like I said, I've read some, and I don't really know of it. I guess if I had to know a book that I've read that influenced me the most, I guess I would say the Bible, only because, like I said, I'm a Christian, so that's, but I think your question is probably more apt to, is there a book I read that might have influenced me in my profession or something? And if that was the case.
In any way.
Okay, then I guess,
life.
Okay, Bible, personal,
okay.
And again, I look at that too as just as, again, a lot of people always question, like, how can a military person be, a Christian, because you're kind of have the job of killing people and stuff like that. But I look at it as you need to have that spiritual foundation, and then that gives you the confidence to be able to do what you do, type of thing. So,
did you use libraries when you were in the service? Why or why not?
Yes, I do use libraries all the posts have libraries, and it's a great way. Usually they're either books donated or things, and they're very lenient. Like, if you need a year to read it, they may call you and say, hey, are you going to bring that book back? But generally they're very willing to work with you. And now they've gotten into, DVDs and like the War College, man, I must have watched 50 war movies from DVDs from that library. So again, yes, I used the libraries a lot.
So when you were in the service, when you used the libraries, was it more for learning and for your profession, or was it more for fun and recreation?
Can I say both? Because again, like I said earlier, I read military history because I enjoy it, but I do generally find like, ooh, I can use this, maybe the way this general acted in a certain battle or something, I can say, this will be great when I talk about ethics, and type of things. So so like I said, I can use it for both.
So tell me about retirement. You decided to retire, and it's 2012. And at that point, you were at the Pentagon?
No, I was at the War College. And I was hoping I would just get a job at the War College. And they had some small contracts that they, wanted me for. And I was okay with that. But I'm kind of a guy that has to, like, be constantly doing something, And it was, like, probably driving my wife worse than me. But I was like, I can't believe I'm waking up in the morning and I don't have to be anywhere. This is not me. So anyway, after trying to do that for about a couple of years, and it was okay, but I was like being like a soccer official. I was coaching a girls' basketball team. I was finding just stuff to do, and I was like, I want to teach. And so this job in the ROTC came open, and I said, my wife's name is Teal. I said, Teal, how would you like to live in Illinois? She goes, why not? We haven't lived there yet. So we loaded up the car, and like the Beverly Hillbillies, where they have everything. We felt like we were like that. We just loaded everything up and headed here.
And what is your position here at the university?
I'm a assistant professor of military science over at the Army ROTC department. So,
how has been your adjustment to civilian life? After 30 years.
I'd say now I love it. I really do. The first couple of years, it was a lot of soul searching, a lot of saying, I don't think I'm going to make it outside of the military and stuff. But this job, I really do. I like the people around here. I love this university, and I just like the fact that, I can actually talk about my experiences to the cadets. And they're actually interested in it. It's like, really? It's like so it's kind of a win-win-win. And like I said, so I guess I've officially transferred over to the civilian side, and hopefully I'm able to do this for like another 10, 12 years.
There you go. Have you remained in contact with or reunited with fellow veterans, and if so, who?
The answer to that is yes. All of my colleagues and friends from the War College, we still have our youngest daughter still goes to college in Pennsylvania, so we go back to the War College quite regularly, and we see them all the time. Some of the others from the earlier in the service, not so much, but the nice thing about things like Facebook and things, that generally tends to, you at least kind of, whenever some big event occurs, you kind of, check on them. You pass updates back and forth, and then maybe it fades for a while until another big event occurs. But yeah, I guess by mainly email and Facebook and those things, I keep up with most of them. And then, like I said, the ones that we knew in Pennsylvania, we keep probably at least twice a year we see them.
Okay. Are you a member of any veterans organizations, and if so, which?
Well, I'm the member of the American Legion of Savoy, so that's the current one here. I'm also a member of it's not the VFW here, but I guess I have to change my membership because it's still, I still pay my dues to the one in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, but probably I need to update that. So that's a good question. Maybe I better write that down.
As a veteran, have you used your local library? Why or why not?
Say that again.
As a veteran,
okay.
Have you used your local library? Why or why not?
Meaning the library here on campus?
Campus or the local public. So we have several local publics in the
I haven't used the local community one. Now, on campus, yes. Now, one thing you may not realize is that the Army ROTC has its own library. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,200 books over there. So we have a lot of books. I use that all the time. Now, this building, I should be over here more often, but I'm not. But my point being is, yes, I enjoy reading, so I typically go to the libraries when I get the chance.
Is that a good experience or a bad experience?
Good. I mean, there's nothing I have against about reading. As a matter of fact, what's surprising is, maybe there's a question I can ask you. What do you find as far as the younger generation? Do they read more or less?
It depends on what they're reading for. So usually if it's for schoolwork, we have high usage with our journal articles.
Oh, okay.
So
good.
They're doing a lot of online reading.
Okay.
If they're reading for fun, and they'll go to certain libraries. So here on campus, the undergraduate library is our closest library to a public library. It has the DVD collection in it. It has learnable technology. It has the popular books that are not necessarily research or academic oriented, things like that. So, yeah, I mean, we also have books. We have lots and lots of books, and they do get used. But it kind of also just depends on the department and what they're interested in.
Okay, that's good to know.
So, as a veteran, are there programs or types of books available at the library that you enjoy more than others?
Well, I like books on leadership. I really do. And again, this university has its own leadership minor or academy or what. And so that's kind of an interest that I have. But most of the books I've pulled out and actually read are military history. Sorry, I know it sounds like a broken record, but that's okay. What I like reading.
As a veteran, is there something that you wish you could change about the library that would enhance your enjoyment of it?
No, matter of fact, if anything, you guys are head and shoulders above what I expect. Because, like I said, I typically come in and I'm still looking for the little file where you kind of check, the card catalog. That's what, or you going to the Dewey Decimal System, and you guys have all this stuff like, you just type on in, and here's the book, and I can show you exactly where it is. Like, whoa, and stuff like that. So to me, I'm always like impressed with what the library has done, and sadly, like I said, I just don't get over here as much as I should.
Mm-hmm. So, how do you feel that your military or wartime experiences affected your life? Which is a lot because there was 30 years of service.
To me, the military was my adult life. But I don't know. To me, what I tell the cadets, because the cadets always ask me kind of a similar question and stuff, and what I tell them is like, I have a firm believer that we're all put on this earth for something. I didn't realize I was put here to be a soldier until I was probably in for 10 years, and after a while I stopped asking myself, what do I want to do when I get out of the military, to the point is like, oh, I'm doing what I should be doing. So I guess to answer your question, the military is really pretty much all I've really wanted to do. Again, I went to college to be an accountant. That's what my actual degree is in accounting. And the only time I've ever used that degree is to do my own income tax. I mean, it's sad, but I mean, the military has trained me and educated me in what I needed to do, and I seem to have like how some things just come easy to you. Mm-hmm. That seemed to come easy to me, so I had no issues, and nor did I ever really feel I wanted to do anything else. To give you an example of this, I don't think I would be a bad teacher if you just said, hey, teach in this department, and I happen to know something about it. But I really enjoy still trying to help the next generation that wants to serve in the military. So that's why I like the ROTC department.
What are some life lessons you learned from military service?
The value of teamwork, helping others, looking out for the big picture. It's amazing how I see that so many individuals are just focused on what's happening today, and of course that drives my kids bonkers because, like I said, I'm trying to tell them, well, okay, that's interesting, but have you thought about what you might want to do like next year and stuff? And they're like, no, Dad, so I mean, I guess those are probably the things that I've gotten the most out of the military service.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will hear this interview? Think grandkids.
What would the most thing? I would just say that I would tell people, grandkids, that your time on Earth is limited. I would say find something that you really feel like you got a passion for, and then go for it. I mean, don't worry about so much on how much money you make. The money is there if you're doing something that you enjoy doing, because I'm telling you, I've seen a lot of people that are not doing what they want to do, and they just hate life, and I've never felt that way. I felt like I've been doing what I was meant to be here for, and I've really not only grown from it, but I've typically found at the end of the day, I said, I really enjoyed what I did today, so, and I just want to see everyone have those opportunities. So yeah, if you're listening to this, do what you got a passion for.
Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed or should be added to this interview, and if so, what?
No, I'm hoping that I've provided you what you needed, and if I don't, I'm more than happy to come back or stay longer, or whatever, because I want basically my reason for doing this is because it sounded like you were doing a research project, and I wanted to help in some way. Because what I'm fearful of is, because of the fact that we don't have a draft, we don't have a mandatory military service, I fear that a lot of people don't understand the military. So if I can, in just some minor way, kind of help explain, I'm more than happy to do so.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.